whatever I said? Okay, so, well, what I was saying is, don't worry too much about the test. Um, you know, do your best, but if you just didn't do well, it doesn't really matter. Most, I don't know, most people, if I were to interview, I would rather look at if you can really do the job, if you can really be hands on. I'll probably give you a project on or something like that, instead of looking of your at your results. In fact, when I hire people, I don't even look at the CGPA, right? So I'm not really, I think I'm not really keen on the results, any sort of results, test results or your CGPA or any of that sort. I would rather listen to you talk. I'd rather question you. I would rather listen to you talk. I would rather look at your final year project, and I probably give you a little test during the interview. So if you can be hands on, then I'm happy. There's no point having a good score, but you can't do the job. Okay? So I believe a lot of people out there also believe the same. So because we've hired a lot of people with good CGPA, but they can't do the job, right? So don't worry too much about it, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't get a good CGPA, right? You shouldn't, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try your best for this test as well. All right. As I mentioned, um if you ask me, I wouldn't really want to give you a test for all these courses that we've been teaching you, but it is part of the um, criteria, the condition that we have to comply from the sponsors, right? Okay, so that's about it. So don't worry too much. Okay, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to go through some topics, and some of these topics would be an important hint for your test as well. So you need to pay attention. Okay, so I will, after that, going through some of the topics as a revision, then we will have a project. We have two small projects, no, one big project and another small project. Okay, so that might take you up to lunch or even after the lunch hour, but it doesn't matter. I just need additional 2 hours maybe today for load runner, to start load runner, and then continue with load runner tomorrow. So it doesn't matter if there's a spillover for the Silk Central after lunch. So I was talking earlier that you need to understand the 8 steps, basic operations of building your QA assets. But that is project, filling in your requirements tree, your test tree, and then creating your test steps, and then moving on to execution plan, and then to execute the test, looking at the results, and then finally reports, right? So to mainly understand, you need to look at what is it that you're doing in each of these 8 basic steps. So step 1, what is it that you're doing? Step 2, what is it that you're doing? Step 3, what is it that you're doing? And so on, so forth, right? So that is mainly an important thing, right? So let's quickly go through here. So don't forget that some of the terminologies used, application under test, all that still applies in the test, right? Okay, so the rest of this chapter is just talking about step 1, what is it that you're doing? Step 2, right, create the hierarchy for requirements, and so on and so forth, right? So that is the important part in this chapter. Next, going to chapter 3. Can you see the slides? Boleh? Can you guys see the slides? Okay, thank you. Right. Next in these chapters, basically it says setting the stage. Um, there will be some questions about I don't know, probably about requirements, definitely, right? um So you need to understand who is it that might be in charge of requirements, right? Which are the team, or where is the requirements coming from? Basically, you need to understand that, right? Requirement, a request that some application needs to be created. So remember, if an organization is creating a project, so that project could be a request coming in from inside the organization itself, or probably you are building it for the end users outside of the organization. So it depends. So imagine if the bank, Maybank to you, right? If Maybank needs to create the app, online app, Maybank to you. So this is a request coming, and it is a request basically to fulfill the needs of the users, the customers. The customers are not internal employees, but they are customers of the bank. So it could be the public, right? On the other hand, it if Maybank, of course, each organization will have its own internal application, maybe a payroll application, or probably we call it a HR application. So if that is the case, what do they do with the HR application? This is where big companies might have a HR portal. So employees can log into their portal, they can check their salary, they can print out their pay slip, they can actually look at all the details, their leave. This is where they will be applying for their leave. They can look at how many number of days is left for them, and then they could look at probably appraisal. Appraisal is actually a KPI for each of the employees, what you need to achieve in the next 6 months or in the next 12 months. So they can look at their appraisal, they can look at who is their immediate manager, whom are they reporting to. They can put in their claims, expenses claims, right? So this is the internal request for an application, right? So you could be developing, so a requirement, the requirements for this particular project or this particular software that you are creating could be coming from internal, right, from your own organization, or it could be to fulfill the needs of customers outside public. Okay, so requirements could come from both area, and who are the people who's going to give you the details of the requirements? So that could be the business team in the organization, right? There would be usually a big organization will have a department called business, right? Business department. So the business department might be coming up with the requirements for the for your project, okay, right? Or it might be coming from the internal team, maybe your project team itself. You yourself sit down and kind of think about what could be the requirements for the project, like that. Okay, so again, who are the people who would be filling in the requirements? So I mentioned that in large organizations you probably have business analysts who would be filling in the requirements. However, in a small organization you might have the testers or the QA team uh, creating the requirements. So this all depends. Okay, so you don't really need to know. I don't think you need to memorize, like, okay, this is the fields available in Silk Central for requirements. So that I don't think that is necessary. Okay, we are more interested in the higher process and concept part. All right. So setting the stage. All right. This is like such a short um chapter, isn't it? Okay. Maybe you might need to know some definition for requirements, right? What is a requirement? Okay, that would be important maybe. Okay, next is, did I miss chapter 1? Let me look at chapter 1. Oh yeah, chapter 1 is like the the architecture part. All right. So All right. So the Silk central architecture is something that you might need to know. Okay. So this is talking about what are the, basically what are the kind of servers. Okay, so you don't really need to like draw this thing or memorize these things, but what's important is you might need to know the role of each of these servers, right? So what does the front end server do, or what does the chart server do, or database server? What is the function of these servers, right? Okay, all right. So let's look at defining requirements. So here, um, right. So basically here, what's important would be um, the you have to understand how the requirements coverage. You need to understand what what do you actually read from the requirements coverage. So if you see the colors like that, what does it really mean? Okay, so those things are important. So remember we went through this. Okay, so you need to know. So red means what, right? Gray means what? Those things are important. Okay, all right. And then creating the structure. So, well, creating the structure is very simple. There's nothing much to it. Okay. Then, well, the different ways of you entering your requirements. So that is also simple. You need to know that. Okay. Um, so these are the different ways. So you must know what are those three ways. What else? Let me think. Teaching you guys my class, I didn't really mention much about risk, right? So I think I need to go through some stuff on the risk. Okay, so basically we didn't really talk much about risk, and in fact there isn't really much in the slides as well. So basically you need to know, I did mention briefly about risk requirements risk. Now basically every requirement that you enter into the test management tool, every requirement in fact has got its own risk. Okay, so what is this risk? So basically, the risk is something that is basically saying that if this requirement does not does not pass, okay, if this requirement fails. So how does a requirement fail? A requirement fails when you create a test. Let's say a requirement is login, right? So then when you are testing it, you will create a test to test that login requirement, right? So if that test fails, that means the login functionality is not working. Okay, so when I say risk, so basically if the requirement login has got a high, is actually a high risk of failing. So that's when you say fail. So I'm trying to make you understand. When I say a requirement has got risk, how do you know there's risk? You'll be testing it, right? Okay, you'll be testing it. So when I say requirement risk, you need to look at it in terms of functionality. So if there's a high risk of, let's say in Maybank to you, some of the requirements, examples I'm giving, let's say login. So we need to calculate what is the risk for login functionality. And for example, is it got a high probability of failure, right? So usually a requirement will have a high risk, right, of failure when it has got a very complex calculation, maybe, right? Or it is a new feature. Okay, so these are the kind of questions that you ask to find out, to calculate the risk of a requirement. Okay, so in your requirement, if you look at your requirement, let me just go to Silk Central for a bit. um Share. Okay, Silk Central. Let's go to requirements. Hey, what happened? That's strange. Can you guys log in? Uh-oh. Alright, I need to look for the admin team. Not sure what happened there. Or let me just log in back. What about you guys? Can you guys log into your Silk Central? Can you check? Okay, let me. So lab assistant, you guys, can you like find out what's going on? Can or can't? Ada yang can, ada yang can't. Which is which? Some of them can access. Okay, so guys, please work on it because I need to. Well, we have a revision class going on to start with. Let me try a different login. Okay, so I can't show you requirements. Let's see what happens. Let the lab assistants do something about it. So meanwhile, let me just show you from the slides. Okay, risk. All right, so here you can see that, right? Let me use the annotate. Okay, so if you look at here, business risk, business impact, right? Calculated risk. Can you see that number? So this is how the risk is calculated. So how do you come up with the risk? So we're looking at the risk for customer account management, basic, right? So you highlight that risk, that particular requirement, and then here you get like a risk is high. So where does the high risk comes from? Okay, where does the high risk comes from? Okay, the high risk comes from business impact, business risk, and then calculated risk. So you need to fill up all this information in order for it to calculate it and then get a high risk status for that particular requirement. Okay, so in order for you to calculate the risk, usually there are a number of questions, right? And in our Silk Central, I think in the demo project, some of these attributes are being set up, are being customized. So in your own project, probably it's not there, because this is something that you have to create a new property, and then you kind of create, it's a customized field. Okay, so it's the customized field. So basically, in order for me to create an assessment, I probably have to create a property called calculated risk, business impact, and then I have to put in some weightage. right, on each one of these, and then only I can get a high risk. Okay, so business impact would be questions like, if this requirement does not work, if it does, if it fails, what is the impact on business? And then some of the answers to that question could be, is that a legal issue, or is that a showstopper, or is it like not a big impact, something like that. So based on the answer that you choose, then there would be a number assigned to that particular field, a property. Okay, so similarly you can see failure probability, a few other things. These are all customized depending on what kind of risk calculation you want to include. So the questions would not be very very specific. The questions basically needs you to understand what is a risk, right? And then some of the questions like impact or risk, how is the risk calculated, and things like that. Okay, and what else? Okay, so yep, let me go to the next chapter. So managing test. So similarly there will be a few questions here. So here you probably need to understand about, the containers, folders, and tests, right? How do you create them, and things like that. So what is a container, and what is a folder? Folder is just a folder, and finally you have the test, right? Okay, so let me see what else here. Test folder, right? Those. Okay, creating a test. All right, you probably need to know what is the plan time used for. Okay, so remember, when you create a test, you put in planned. So what is that for actually? So basically, you're going to find out at the end of the day. Remember, we can find out like what is the total time available for testing, what is the remaining time available for testing, right? So where is that information coming from? It's all coming from here, planned. Okay, so you need to know that. So what is the plan time? What is it used for? You need to know probably the sequence, right? You create a test, you create the test tree. Okay, remember the container and all that. And then what do you do? What do you do next? Most probably, right? You probably add in the test steps, and then you probably assign the testers, all right? And then you probably execute it. So things like that. And I think that's about it here. Okay, there's quite a lot of stuff in this chapter. Okay, so here it's about execution planning. So yes, you need to know about execution planning. Um, you need to know about, let's see. So execution planning, what do you really do in this chapter or this part is basically how you can create three types of plan, right? You can create three types of plan. One is execution plan. So this is the simplest one. So basically you just create a plan. You have a few tests in it. You assign a tester and you execute the test. Okay, right. Um, so here basically you have a plan that maps to a single container, right? Container is like a folder with a few tests in it. Okay. So where's this test container coming from? It's coming from the test unit. So remember the many units, the many tabs. You have like test and then you have execution planning, right? So this is coming from the test unit. So and then you can also create a configuration suite. All right. So what is this for? Basically to reuse the execution plan. So you can create an execution plan or a configuration suite, or you can create a testing cycle. So there are three types of plans. So basically, you can also create a configuration suite, right? Configuration suite is basically to reuse. What's the purpose of creating a configuration suite? You want to reuse the execution plan for different kinds of configuration, right? So maybe you want to test it for IE8, IE10, right? Or you want to test it for different types of database. You want to test it for different kind of browser, right? Firefox and IE and Edge maybe, right? So that's the purpose of configuration suite. Okay, and apart from that, you can also create it and put it in a testing cycle, right? So so if you guys think that you do not understand any of this, so basically remember there's a lot of online help as well that you can read. Okay, so testing cycle is also another way. So here you create a cycle and you insert all the tests inside the cycle, and then you can actually run it. So the purpose is you are able to measure your progress based on the cycle, right? You can do testing based on cycle as well. So usually when you have a release, and then let's say a release 1.0, you will have a cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3. I did explain about this testing, right? So if you want to create a plan according to cycle, that's fine, right? So you test it based on a cycle. So all these, the cycle especially is basically for manual execution of test. Okay, specifically for manual execution of test. So when you talk about execution servers, so remember in this course, we are going to focus a lot on manual testing, right? So there will not be questions that are related to automated testing in this Silk Central. Okay, so there were some discussion on execution servers. So basically, execution servers are related to automated test. Okay, right. So well, you could have, right, you could have you need to know about dependencies, you need to know about schedule. Okay, there are two or three types of schedule. You need to know about dependencies, so I'm going to discuss about them shortly, okay, one by one. And you need to know about configuration suite. We just discussed about that. Okay, so all these are part of the execution planning. All right. Okay, first you create a tree. This is your execution planning. So you create a tree just like any other unit, same as requirements and tests, right? And then here you decide whether you want to create the any of the three types, right? Whether you want to create an execution plan, or whether you want to create a configuration suite or testing cycle, right? Okay, and then you'll be assigning test. So remember, when you create a execution plan, you'll be selecting automatically during the creation, you'll be selecting the container. All right. The container, what is a container? A container is actually a folder that contains a few tests. Okay, those tests could be related. All right. Okay, so you need to know that. And what else? Okay, so remember about the different views, right? Okay, document view and the details view. So yes, so remember there are three types, right? So this is the first type, execution plan. So where is this coming from? It's coming from here. So the three types, look, this execution plan, configuration suite, testing cycle. So the first part here is execution plan, right? So execution plan maps to a single test container. Only tests from that container can be executed. So every execution plan, if I have plan 1, it will map to a test container 1. If I have plan 2, it will map to test container 2, like that. Okay. Execution plan, they can have manual or automated tests, but as I mentioned, in this course, we focus more on manual. Um, so for automated tests, execution plan for automated tests can be deployed on multiple execution servers, right? Depending on the different automated tests that you want to carry out. But that will not be the focus of our discussion. Um, yes, execution plan, on the other hand, can be assigned to multiple manual testers, right? So if I have an execution plan, A, and I'm going to execute from a test container called test container A, then I can assign 2 or 3 testers to execute my execution plan A. Okay? Execution plan can contain dependencies. Okay? It can contain dependencies, meaning what? Meaning, let's do that. Let's do some sharing here. Uh, New share whiteboard. All right. So I think I did this yesterday, but let's do this again. If I wanted to have, let's say, execution plan A, and then I want to have another execution plan B. Execution plan C, something like that, right? So basically, I can have dependencies. So let's say I have to do execution plan A first, and then only I can run execution plan B, and then only I will be running execution plan C. So this is what I call a dependency. So if execution plan A was not executed, then I cannot execute plan B. Also, when I execute plan A, I can also have certain conditions. Like I can say that it not only has to be completed, but it has to have a pass status as well. So basically, I have a dependency. So if execution plan A was executed but didn't pass, I cannot execute execution plan B. Things like that. Okay, so these are dependencies. That means you have a condition for your execution plans. All right. All right. So these are all common things, tasks that you can carry out. No big deal. All right. So create a child execution plan. So this is how you create an execution plan, right? Okay, what else? So the next thing you'll be doing is assigning tests to the execution plan, right? Okay, so automatically here, so you will be adding in the test. What are the tests coming from that container? Okay, let me try whether the Silk Central server is working now. Okay, still the same. Um, I hope lab assistant, what is the status? Will we be able to log in today? And then how are the students going to do how are the people going to do the lab exercises? Anything? Okay. Hopefully if you have any updates, please post it in the group here, in the chat. Okay. Right. Okay. So where were we? Going back to the slides. Okay, we only have 61 students, so I'm not sure. I cannot log in. Okay, so not sure. Okay, right. Where were we? All right. Okay, the next thing is we're talking about the assignment, right? Static versus dynamic execution plan. So you need to know about this. So when you assign test, what is this related to? This is related to once you've created the execution plan, what is the steps what we're doing right now? We created the execution plan, right? First of all, we create the tree, right? Right? We create the tree, we create the execution plan, we fill in the information, and then the next thing we do is we assign tests to the execution plan. So when you assign tests to the execution plan, right here, you have two options. Okay, so one is manual assignment and one is assignment by filter. Yang ni you kena tahu. So this you need to know. So manual assignment meaning you just do this, you select it manually, put it inside the execution plan. So assigning by a filter, which means that you use a preset filter to select the test to be included in the execution plan. So in that filter, you can have some standard stuff like all tests with fixed issues or all tests with open issues or some a few more. Okay, so basically here you don't have to select. When you select one of the filter, so Silk Central will automatically filter out and add those relevant steps, relevant tests into your execution plan based on the filter. All right, so that one you kena tahu. Okay, so next would be deployment environment. So what kind of deployment environment are we talking about? So this is like for test execution purpose, right? If you have any specific environment that you want to use, or it has already been preset. Okay, so for manual test we can select a group and assign a set of users to the test. Okay, so you can select a group. Here is your group. Okay, this is a group that has been set up, and then you can add this group of users to that particular test. Okay, for manual, so they would be actually carrying out the test. Okay, configuring deployment environment again. Yes, this is for automated tests, so I'm not going to talk about it. Again, this is for automated test as well. Yeah, right. Schedule is the next thing. So again, schedule is also quite related to automated test as well, because why? Um, most of the, especially when you assign a manual test plan to a schedule, it doesn't really make sense, because you basically an email will be sent to the manual tester, and so that the tester will have to carry out those tests during that scheduled time. But this is more applicable to automated testing, because if you schedule an automated test, let's say for tonight 10 p.m., so you just set up, and then at 10 p.m. it will automatically start executing the test. Of course, you need to make sure that all the resources are available, right? Servers and so on and so forth. Okay, so there are three scheduling options. You need to understand this. Three scheduling options. There's one with no schedule. So most of the time for manual tests, you probably choose the no schedule. And then you have the global schedule. If you want to choose the global schedule, a schedule has to be already defined, right? So you need to, once you have those of you who have license, figure out where you can define the schedule, right? It is in the execution plan itself. You can go and predefine your schedule. So once you predefine your schedule, that schedule would appear in this global drop down list. So you can create my schedule or Lila's schedule or your schedule, whatever name, right? And then you predefine the schedule, like what date and what interval maybe. And then is it going to run until end of this year, every week or something like that, right? Every day. Okay. So what is the interval? So for example, if I want to run the test today at this time, and then I'll have an interval of 2 days, and then it will run again after 2 days, and then it will run forever. Of course, you do not want to select forever. You want to select probably until certain dates, until the next month. So it will follow that schedule. Every 2 days once, it will execute the test. All right. And of course, if you wanted custom schedule, then again you set up the details here, right here. Okay. So those are the three different types of schedule. Um, well, this is the execution dependencies that I mentioned earlier. So you can set up, if execution plan A fails, automatically run execution plan B. So if execution plan A passes, will it run execution plan B? No, right? So these are the type of dependencies that you want to set up. This is the dependency that I just explained to you earlier. So you need to understand about dependencies. Next. So remember, when you want to set up dependencies, you can set up based on condition as well. If execution A passed, then what do you want to do? If execution A failed, what do you want to do? If execution A was not executed, so what do you want to do? Or something like that. Okay, so this is where you set up the condition. So you need to know how to do this. Now, execution setup, cleanup test. I explained to you that this is also quite relevant to automated tests, but of course, you can also use it for manual tests. Now, usually when we run a test, right, we want to always clean up the environment. We want to reset the servers, restart the servers, There could be some configuration that you want to reset to 0. You want to clean up something. So all that can be included as a test as well. So if it's manual, then you have to be part of a step 1, restart server A. Step 2, restart server B. Log in again, something like that. So if it's automated, then it can be recorded as a script. So you want to set up an execution setup and clean up. Okay, so what is the purpose of this? You need to know. So this will all be in a separate execution plan. Okay, so for execution setup and cleanup, you can call tests from different containers and you can run it in separate execution plan. All right. Next, we're going to talk about the next thing, which is configuration suite, right? Which is like one of the 3 items in this topic. What is configuration suite? So basically, as I mentioned earlier, if you wanted to run the same plan on multiple configuration, right, you will be using a configuration suite. So these are some of the key points, right? A configuration suite can contain one to many execution plans. So unlike execution plan, right, the first topic, you can only contain what? One container, one plan, one container. Here you can have a configuration suite that can contain one to many execution plans in it. All right, here the assigned tests are retained. Okay, so you can copy an existing execution plan into a configuration suite. All right, you can define a set of unique configurations for each execution plan. So I have execution plan. I created one execution plan. Let's say I call it Lila's execution plan. So I can include this into my configuration suite. I can include it a few times, right? With the probably different configuration suite. I can include them a few times to set up different to follow a different configuration plan, right? So you can define a set of unique configurations for an execution plan. Each configuration will be a new execution plan, right? So what is the purpose? Remember, we want to set tests in IE8, IE10, Edge, or different browsers. Okay, they can be manual or automated. They can be deployed on multiple execution servers, right? Can contain dependencies as well, right? So here, the common tasks that you can carry out: defining a configuration suite. Okay, just the same like execution plan as well. All right. Okay, so again the same step. Select the test, assigning test to configuration suite. Two methods you can do. um, Two methods are available for assigning specific tests to execution plans: manually via the test tree. Yeah, you can do that, select it manually, and automatically via the predefined filter. So it's the same for execution plan as well, right? So it's the same. So for execution plan, earlier we did this. How did we do it? Yes, here, right? Same thing. Okay. All right, it's the same thing. So this is the same thing, static versus dynamic execution plan, right? Defining configuration. So this is where you define your configuration. Remember, you want to have many configurations, right? So this is an example here in the slide to show you that a folder, configuration suite examples, and then you create a configuration suite for Firefox, and then you have multiple configurations. Firefox 7, Windows 7 Firefox, Windows 8 Firefox, like that, right? So where is it coming from? Prior to that, you need to go in and define your configuration, right? So there is a way in your execution plan to define it. So I hope you'll try that out once you have your license, right? So you define the configuration and then you set up, you just choose the configuration. Next is testing cycles. All right, testing cycles. Right. So here it is used specifically in manual testing. So it is allowed for defining manual execution of test and for assignment of manual testers. Okay. So contains a burn down chart to visualize the testing process. Okay, you have a burn down chart. What's the meaning of a burn down chart? Those of you who were in the Think Like a Tester course, so remember you have a burn down chart to show your progress. So how much have you completed? How much time is left? How many tests was done? Things like that. So those are to actually visualize your testing progress, right? This is only available in your testing cycle method, right? Remember there are few execution plan in this chapter. So burn down chart is only in your testing cycles. That's important. You need to know. You can move tests between testing cycles. You can move tests between one tester to another. So that is cool. If one tester is overloaded, you can move that job, right? Test to another tester. Testing cycles can be populated by an import from an existing execution plan, right? You can do that. Contains a test selection page to match test to the testing cycle. You have the option of using predefined filters as well, or quality goal parameters to find matching tests. All right, so you can find the test selection method, right? You have a test. What is special about testing cycles method is basically you have a test selection page to match your testing cycle. So you can use a filter, right? Or you can use a quality goal parameters to find a test to be included in your testing cycle. Contains a test assignment page to assign testers to the map test. So let's take a look at all of this. So this is the testing cycle. Um, so basically screens of manual execution planning, menu and test selection page, right? So this is your test selection page. So this is your manual execution planning. This is where you work on your testing cycles, right? And then so yeah, so this is where you are selecting your, this is your test assignment page. So basically you can drag and drop it. I have done this demo, I think, in class, right? Okay, walk through. So a typical challenge of planning your manual testing is there are too many tests and not enough resources. Okay, to support this challenge, the manual execution planning menu offers the test assignment screen and the test selection screen. Okay, so why is this? So this is an important point, guys. Okay, what is the purpose of you know, what is the purpose of having the test assignment screen and the test selection screen? Basically it is to help you with your challenge of, you know, not adequate resources. So testing cycle walkthrough, a brief overview of the testing cycle process. Create a testing cycle. This is important. Okay, create a testing cycle, assign the test and the scheduling, assign manual testers, take action on testing cycle. So let's find out, right? So first of all, create a testing cycle. So those of you who have your license, you should be trying this out. Okay, create a testing cycle. I believe you did, right, in your lab. I think you should have done this, right? And then, okay, so new testing cycle. How do you do that? Go to your manual execution planning. All right, and then you click on new testing cycle. Okay, that's it. Step 2, you get this window, fill up the information, capacity of planning. You need to include the capacity of planning, right? um don't forget your start and end date. Okay, then you assign test and scheduling. How do you do that? So assign test. So you get this in the filter criteria area, right? Okay, check the test importance checkbox. See here on the right, you have a check test importance checkbox. So if you say you want all critical, this will narrow down 11 tests in the middle column. So if you select anything on the test importance here, so basically you are selecting the test to be included in your cycle based on this, right? Whether it's critical or high or whatever, right? Test importance. And then based on what you select here, automatically it will pick up this value here. Okay, let me just go to annotate. All right, let me just go to spotlight. So, all right, this is the previous message. All right. Okay, so basically when you open your, when you already done creating your cycle, right? So basically you can go here. On the left pane, you have your filter criteria, how you want to include the test into your cycle. So you can choose the test importance, right? You can select the test importance button here. So based on your selection, automatically it will be picking up tests from here to be included into your cycle, right? So in the matching test area, right click on the test to select, right? Okay, you can drag the test into the testing cycle area. There's an indicator that it will update the resources, capacity, plan time, and time left. So these three things are also important for your test: capacity, plan time, time left. Okay, right. So you can drag and drop into the particular testing cycle. So the assigned test will now be moved to the no specific tester row, because probably at this point you have not selected the tester yet. Okay. Next, you assign manual testers. So basically, click on the test assignment button. There is a test assignment button, which is this on top of your cycle, on top right of your cycle window, right? You click on it, and then you will have another selection, right? You have another window. So in the configuration of testing cycle, select edit assign testers. Okay, you have to click on edit assign testers, and then you would be able to add or remove testers with a capacity, right? All right, so test assign, Bolan and admin, you have selected the two testers. Okay, so I believe you have done this in your lab exercise. So if you can't remember, you probably want to repeat all your lab exercises. So you select the testers, finally taking action on a testing cycle. So take action on testing cycle. So what kind of action are we talking about here? When assigned are finished, you click the configuration icon and start test. So where is the configuration icon? Here on the top right. Okay, so on the top right, if you click that, there is a button for start testing cycle. When the testing cycle is started, each manual tester is informed through email. Okay, so you need to know this process. Okay, you can add the test inbox via the panel called manual test assigned to me in your personal dashboard. Okay, remember I did demo to you this yesterday. So you go to your dashboard. Right, you go to your dashboard. I think I can able to show you my dashboard. New share, Silk Central, dashboard. Yeah, okay. So here, manual test assigned to me. Are you able to look at my dashboard? Yes. Okay, manual test assigned to me. So from here, you are able to okay, of course now it's offline because I can't log into my Silk Central. But basically from here, you can see all the tests that are assigned to you through the testing cycle. Okay, so you can actually run it from here itself. All right, so all tests assigned to you are listed there in that panel. Actions available on the testing cycle, edit the cycle, edit assign testers. So all of these, what are the things that you can do, right, from the configuration icon. So that is the summary for this execution planning, right? So there are quite important things in here. Okay, any questions? Okay, if no, well, now I need you guys to let me know, right? Chat. Hang on. Okay, I need you guys to let me know um how many of you can access Silk Central right now. Okay, so basically you can angkat tangan, raise your hand if you can access Silk Central. You can raise your hand, right? Can't you raise your hand? Can, okay. So only one person can access. 3, okay. I'm looking. 4 only out of 60 over. 5, okay. Come on, guys. 6. Who can access? Raise your hand. Is there a problem raising your hand? Tak jumpa tangan? Is it? Kalau tak jumpa tangan, just say yes. So remember, those who can access only angkat tangan. Okay? Or say yes. Right? So, well, I don't know. The lab assistant said that there are 60 license. However, I see that only like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of you can access. Let me scroll down. Ada lagi tak tangan? Tak ada pun. Okay, well, I don't know what to say. So yang lain tak boleh? Or you are not there? So it's just one of these two. Hmm? It's just one of these two. Okay, I don't know. Alright, so only 6 or 7, is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of you can access. That's really sad. Okay, so I'm going to finish this chapter now. Right, I'm going to go to the next one. So okay, so before that, let's take like a 10 minutes break. Okay, so you guys can also betulkan you punya notes. If you're taking notes, right, you can just look at your notes and correct it. All right, 10 minutes break. Okay, and yeah, I'll see you guys in 10:55. Okay.